Hello, everyone. Can everyone hear me? I hope so. Great. I wanted to welcome everyone here today. My name is Michael Simonson. I am the head of public outreach at the Leo Baeck Institute, as well as the head of the reference department, which we work answering questions from researchers related to our holdings and the larger picture of German Jewish history in Central Europe. A brief description of the history of the Leo Baeck might be in order. We were founded in Jerusalem in 1955 by Rabbi Leo Baeck himself, along with Martin Buber and other intellectual figures of the German Jewish world. The goal of the Institute was originally to gather, study, and share with scholars the vast intellectual work produced by the academic and religious leaders of German-speaking Jewish communities in Europe. But as the decades went by after 1955, and really beginning in earnest in the 1970s, there was a growing interest in the daily lives of everyday people. New topics of interest emerged for researchers, and at the same time, the LBI branched out to include increasing amounts of collections of what I will call regular families, though of course that's kind of a misnomer, because what family is regular, really? But people living, working, and celebrating joy in their daily lives, and documenting that history, as well as the history of more intellectual and theological thinkers. Today, we have nearly 15,000 collections. We have around 90,000 books in our library holdings at all. And most of our archival collections now are family collections, and these come in very helpful for researchers trying to discover more about the history of Jews in their local communities, which is, of course, a subject that we're going to be talking about today. The Leo Baeck Institute is here to support and promote this work, and because of that, we are, of course, very pleased Christoph Mauny shares a similar mission. Christoph, who we're going to meet, has brought a living culture of remembrance to his community, which is located in the state of Thuringia, or Thüringen in German, an area where the extreme right is especially active right now, sadly. His impressive projects have included a unique 360-degree video installation at the site of the former synagogue, which is now a shopping mall, and an ambitious digital unfinished memorial to 20,000 forced laborers at the Ohrdruf concentration camp. And it features biographies, sketches, and more. Camp Ohrdruf, which is largely forgotten by the local people, was the first camp liberated by the US Army and was visited by General Eisenhower at the time of the liberations within Germany. And we look forward to hearing more about Christoph's work from Christoph himself. The Leo Baeck Institute certainly congratulates everything you do, Christoph. And I'm now going to turn it over to Joel Meyer, the founder and executive director of Widen the Circle, to continue the conversation. So thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for that introduction. My name is Joel Obermayer, of course. I'm the executive director of Widen the Circle. We have a long history of cooperation with the Leo Baeck Institute, and we're very excited to have doing this event in conjunction with them today. Thank you for joining us in the final event of our series, Conversations with 2024 Obermayer Award winners. We're super excited to have this series conclude by speaking with Christoph Mauny. Before we talk to Christoph, I would like to tell you just a little bit about Widen the Circle, since there are some people here who I don't think are as familiar with us. So here's the big idea. Widen the Circle uses history and remembrance to heal from historic injustice and combat modern prejudice. We empower people working on the local level in Germany and the United States to make a more just world through their work, as we focus on two specific histories: German Jewish history and the Holocaust and its legacies, and also the history of racism in the United States and its legacies today. And I should just say Widen the Circle works in three areas. First, each year we give out Obermayer Awards in Germany that honor people who have done extraordinary things to preserve pieces of Jewish history and culture in Germany, or done extraordinary things to combat modern prejudice using the lessons from that history. Christoph is, of course, one of our award winners. Second, we have also developed and nurtured a network of remembrance activists who do remembrance projects and also combat prejudice in modern Germany. more than 300 of them across the country. And then the third area, Widen the Circle builds bridges among educators and activists and thought leaders in the United States and Germany who are dealing with these historic legacies of injustice. We run a fellowship program that brings a cohort of these amazing people together in Berlin so they can learn, share knowledge, and collaborate in order to amplify their further work. And I'm happy to say that Christoph is participating in some of the fellowship activities this year. So let me now turn to Christoph, today's guest. And Michael, you gave a lovely introduction, so I'm just going to give a very short one. Christoph Mauny uses a range of innovative tools in his quest to create what he calls a living culture of remembrance in Gotha, a town in former East German state of Thuringia, where he has inspired people of all ages to learn about the town's once thriving Jewish community and about the local history of the Holocaust. Christoph began by developing educational programs for Friedenstein Castle, which is a local historic palace. Now he works as an education consultant for the Weimar Painting and Drawing School and works with people ages 2 to 102, which is quite the range. We'll hear about several of his really innovative and interesting projects in a moment. I guess we should just note something that Michael said, but I think it's worth saying again. Thuringia is a place where the support for far-right political parties and involvement with neo-Nazi ideology is on the rise. It is a place where remembering at all is often a political act. And as we'll learn, Christoph has had to deal with a range of resistance to his work. For his work, of course, he received an Obermayer Award this year in Berlin. And before we talk to Christoph, let's start with a short film about him that I would love us all to watch.
Ich bin Christoph Mauny. Ich arbeite für die Weimarer Mal- und Zeichenschule als Bildungsreferent. Und das bedeutet vor allen Dingen eigentlich Projektarbeit in Schulen, in Kindergärten, aber auch in der Erwachsenenbildung. Die Jugend habe ich verbracht in Thüringen, gerade in diesem kleinen Ort und dann in so einer kleinen Stadt, Ende der 90er Jahre, Anfang der 2000er. Jetzt so retrospektiv betrachtet, kann man so kaum noch nachvollziehen. Und ja, Rassismus, Ausländerfeindlichkeit, Antisemitismus, ohne dass man irgendwie Jüdinnen und Juden kennt, waren allgegenwärtig. War irgendwie so eine Stimmung, die auch immer so einen Impuls gesteuert hat, man muss das machen. Ja, und habe mir so in der dann beruflichen Laufbahn, die so im Kulturbereich, schließlich vor allen Dingen bei der Stiftung Schloss Friedenstein in Gotha, im Museum, zu arbeiten und heute bei der Weimarer Mal- und Zeichenschule versucht, immer Freiräume zu schaffen und auch immer nach innen zu fragen und die Diskussion und die Debatte anzuhalten, so was ist das Herz des Instituts oder der Einrichtung und wenn wir rausgucken, was ist nötig.
Ja, wir befinden uns hier mitten in der Residenzstadt Gotha, die geprägt ist von Schloss Friedenstein. Und wir sind hier auf dem Parkplatz des noch nicht allzu alten Altstadtforums. Wie man sieht, hier sind mehrere Fachmärkte, Supermärkte so aneinandergereiht, in dessen Mitte gedacht wird und erinnert wird an die Vergangenheit. Hier nämlich die Gotha Synagoge hat sich hier befunden.
Wie geht man mit diesem Ort um, der Synagoge? Kann es das sein, dass man jetzt einen konsumistisch geprägten Ort da hat, der gleichzeitig aber versucht zu erinnern? Und es war klar, wir müssen hier was machen. Das schreit einfach nach einer Intervention.
Also das Projekt war ja die Gotha-Synagoge lebt. Und da ging es halt darum, dass wir das quasi nochmal zum Leben erwecken, hier mit einer großen Fassadenprojektion. Und ja, halt nochmal Aufnahmen gezeigt haben von der Synagoge und darüber gesprochen haben, was hier am 9. auf den 10. November 1938 passiert ist in der Reichspogromnacht.
Christoph hat uns dann so in das Projekt auch zu der Synagoge lebt, also das Fassadenprojekt dann mit eingebunden. Dann sind wir auch nach Weimar gefahren, haben da die ganzen Filmaufnahmen gemacht. Also es war ja im Dunkeln dann, also quasi Kinoatmosphäre, alles war dunkel. Und dann kam alle paar Minuten dann der Film über die komplette Fassade. Also es war wirklich alles bespielt und bestrahlt.
Also ich muss sagen, Christoph hat eine sehr krass pädagogische Fähigkeit und er ist super sensibel mit dem Thema umgegangen. Es war auch nicht monoton, es war auf super vielen verschiedenen Ebenen, auf der künstlerischen Seite, auf der pädagogischen Seite. Es war einfach super toll. Ja. Er hat uns quasi an dem ersten Tag schon gleich festgehalten und uns auch irgendwo Sicherheit geboten, dass wir mit dem Thema nicht alleine sind.
Yes.
Und zwar haben wir ganz klar gesagt, es ist eine notwendige Erweiterung dieses lokalen Erinnerungsortes, weil es mehr ist als dieser Ort, mehr als ritualisiertes Gedenken, sondern sowas wie eine lebendige Erinnerungskultur nochmal will und sinnlich, ästhetisch. Mir hat ein Zeitzeuge von Ohrdruf erzählt, was ich damals noch nicht kannte. Also, dass es ein Konzentrationslager direkt vor Gotha gab. Dort wurden insgesamt über wenige Monate der Existenz vom November 44 bis zur Befreiung im April 45 etwa 20.000 Menschen aus ganz Europa gezwungen, ein Führerhauptquartier, ein sogenanntes Führerhauptquartier dort einzurichten. Damit nicht genug, dass es dort überhaupt ein Lager gab. Aber es wurde dann nach schnellen, kurzen Recherchen klar, es war nicht irgendein Lager, es war das erste Lager, was die US-Alliierten befreit haben. Wenn man noch dazu sagt, das erste, in dem sie sowohl Lebende als auch Tote gesehen hat. Aber Ohrdruf war die ganze Zeit, und es ist jetzt in meiner Arbeit in der Malschule in Weimar, auch besonders als Pars pro Toto zu verstehen, als eins von vielen. Also wir haben je nach Rechnung etwa 139 Außenlager Buchenwalds, die sich über die gesamte Mitte Deutschlands strecken. Und das ist nicht Teil des Unterrichts in Schulen, zumindest nicht in Thüringer Schulen. Wir bringen es durch dieses an Schulen gekoppelte Projekt aber in den Unterricht rein.
Christoph Mauny zeichnet es aus, dass er es schafft, den moralischen Kompass zu setzen, aber die Ansprüche nicht zu hoch zu schrauben, sondern zu sagen, jeder und jede kann eigentlich in dem eigenen Handlungsfeld etwas dazu beitragen, an die Geschichte zu erinnern, beziehungsweise unsere Gesellschaft mit den demokratischen Prinzipien zu stärken.
Was Christoph uns vor allem gelernt hat, die Vergangenheit zu ehren, um die Zukunft besser gestalten zu können und dass wir quasi laut sind, um zu präventieren und dass man daran erinnert.
Er unterstützt uns halt aufzustehen und unsere Meinung auch laut zu sagen. Und dass eben hier auch zum Beispiel in Gotha viele Dinge falsch laufen, was die Politik angeht und den Antisemitismus zum Beispiel.
Christoph will auf jeden Fall eine aktive Erinnerungskultur. Er will in die Gesellschaft reinwirken und dafür geht er eben auch auf die Straße. Also Christoph hat selber ganz klare Haltung. Also er ist ein Kämpfer gegen Antisemitismus, gegen Rassismus, gegen Menschenfeindlichkeit. Und natürlich die Erinnerungsarbeit, die er macht, die ist eben auch ein Weg, um Menschen darin zu stärken, sich auch in einer ähnlichen Form zu engagieren.
So I'm happy everyone had a chance to see the film about Christoph. How about we meet him now? Let's have Christoph come up on the screen. And just before we get started, I just want to say, I hope people here have questions and thoughts. If you have questions, please go ahead and put them in the chat. We may not read them immediately, but we will have a section for questions and answers later on. And I promise that we will try and get to as many of those questions as we can. But let me start by welcoming you here. Christoph, it's great to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's such an honor and a pleasure. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody. I still can't believe this Obermayer Award thing. And it's good to see you again and to see all the teenagers which I worked with, and they deserve this prize also.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you. So let's start right into a little discussion here. My impression is that you try to rethink how to do remembrance work, almost from the ground up. You don't assume that it should be the same as it's always been done. Can you talk about this and why you do it?
Yeah, it's a central question. I think the main thing is, in my opinion, that facts need help. They are important, above all in these days of fake news and artificial intelligence and everything, but I think they need something that we can connect to these informations with our souls. So, for example, I don't believe that the wrestling ceremony is enough. I mean, the survivors are dying.
Laying a wreath is not enough. It's got to be more.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we also need other ideas because they are dying. And for me, the central is learning with all that we have, with head and heart and also hands, you know. And this is why I believe in aesthetic education, combining historical or democratic education. That's just that, because art for me is a means of communication, and it's a way of working through it, and it's about dialoguing with the dead also. No, we all have our missed ones that we connect with still, maybe, and also this is a part of remembrance work for me. And active remembrance work involves political statements, and it's about doing something and do it now.
So in a way, you're saying it's not art for art's sake. It's for the sake of connecting with this history. You said with your soul, with your head, with your heart. We saw a couple of examples of your work, and we're going to talk a little bit about them in a minute. But I'm wondering, are there specific things that you're looking for to make a project successful?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't have a magical formula or something like that, but maybe some ideas, and maybe it's an inspiration for other people. And yes, I would like to share some ideas. I mean, one principle is important for me, that our aim is that the participants do not leave our workshops or projects, you know, with the head down, dejected and hunched or something like that, because they have just looked into the abyss of human history with the Shoah. So the aim is to activate and to trigger them, to trigger enthusiasm for democracy. That's it. And the practical part of producing something, an object, a video, any action helps in a very concrete way. There is something. I see that I can do something. Yeah.
So again, it's part of this motivation to be active, really. Let's talk a little bit more about how that comes in action. I would love to start by talking about the projection, the Gotha Synagogue project. And you mention it a little bit in the film, but I would love to get you to talk about, you know, as I understand it was you were working at the Friedenstein Castle for a number of years when you first looked up where the synagogue used to stand. And can you talk about the place? Again, we saw it in the film, but at the same time, I'm not sure you get the full sense of it and the way you experienced it when you first went there.
Yeah, you have all seen this monument or this building, and you can make your own thoughts about it. I mean, I found a little monument in one corner near the side, and it was on the back side of a commercial building. That was the first touch, and it was dark and gray place. There was a lot of noise from industrial ventilation, and it was just ugly and gray and the opposite of life, you know, and the opposite of remembrance. I didn't find any respect to the death.
So it felt like it was hiding almost.
Yeah, that's true also. And you know, they were planning to build a supermarket there, and you have seen it, and it's really in the inner city, in the center. And well, there was this moment of a jackhammer, a picture in the newspaper that I have seen, a jackhammer. There was a construction worker removes the monument to the former synagogue in the January snow, and which it says was only erected in 1988, 50 years, half a century after the destruction, yes, and shortly before the end of the GDR. So, yeah. But this picture was such a brutal sight, you know, and the reason for it, the construction of the retail park.
So they had to move this, they were moving this memorial just for this retail establishment.
Exactly, but there was no sensitive or informative approach to this action. You know, for almost 2 years there was nothing there without comment, and yes, and then in general the consumers take contacts, and this really hard formal language of the building in this long passageway were the second trigger for the project, besides or alongside the jackhammer. So yes, and this monument from 1988 wasn't destroyed, but replaced for the time of building the supermarket, and was reintegrated into a rather oppressive Star of David that you have seen also in the
okay. Okay, so the Star of David was erected afterward. Okay.
Yes, and now you have this passage where you can remember between a jean store and a drugstore, and also there are walls. We have also seen it in the video. Sometimes read Gotha remembers, and sometimes Gotha shops. There's everything.
Yeah, yeah, and so it just didn't feel appropriate. Can you talk a little bit about the project that you did do, both in terms of what you did and kind of how does it continue to live now?
Yes, the performance that we have seen a little bit was preceded by a vocabulary project in the beginning. It was a campaign, if you want, in all schools in the city and around Gotha in this district. And they were invited to explore Hebrew and Yiddish origins in our everyday language in lessons or in working groups in the schools. And together with a renowned linguist, we selected 34 of the submissions. 34 because the Gotha synagogue existed for exactly 34 years. And we designed these terms, these words, as postcards, but above all as vocabulary stickers, just this size. And we sent it to all the schools for free. The idea and the result was an urban, decentralized intervention, you know, and all these words like zocken, which means gambling or gamble, words like kaff, which means a little ugly dead place, village, city, or something like that, or Hals- und Beinbruch, break a leg. And all these words, all this vocabulary were seen all over the city, and thanks to the committed participants, even as far as Hamburg and Vienna and Cologne. And well, hate messages were pasted over with that action in the city, and there are not a few there. And yes, education was carried out to a big audience. New target groups were reached by going from this sacred museum or castle with exhibition rooms and art and stuff, going out there to the people who are shopping or coming back home from work, you know.
And it sounds like part of this was to make the presence of this Jewish history, this Jewish culture, visible in a way. It sounds like these labels of the different words were part of that. And it sounds like the rest of the project was also. I still want you to talk about it a little bit. I do want to point out for people who are watching, you couldn't always tell just because it's hard to see film sometimes on Zoom. There was both a projection, right? Both actually the visualization of the synagogue, and it was accompanied both video and sound in a very powerful way. But again, why don't you tell us a little bit? So it went from this intervention you talked about with the words to this projection.
Yes, exactly. And this words, the sticker, this vocabulary campaign, which preceded the performance, was like the red line in the performance. And they were spoken out in this video, sound, and light installation, 360 degrees movie on these two walls of this passage. And it was not the same picture or content on both sides, but it was a whole around cinema, expanded cinema, if you want. And these words were spoken in this installation by Reinhard Schramm, chairman of the Jewish state community here in Thuringia. I respect him so much. He's such a kind man, a real mensch. And he goes into schools and does educational work, for example. He's amazing. He goes to prisons. Well, and it was in this 360 degrees projection of film, animation, light, and sound art. And it was like an 8-minute clip or something like that. And it ran in a continuous loop for a week in the evening hours, because it's necessary that it's dark.
Yeah.
Yes, and we filmed it also in 360 degrees, and it became a digital memorial now, available on YouTube. Sorry for advertising. And
it's okay.
the YouTube app, if you watch it on the YouTube app, you can really enjoy it virtually.
Get the full exposure. And you said it's also available on the German Wikipedia page for the Gotha Synagogue. Is that right?
Yeah, one of the teenagers told me that she found it there, and that was, I mean, everyone was excited that it's there. So they all the participants could see, wow, I was part of that. Now it's on Wikipedia. Yeah, it became something that stays.
Yeah.
You know?
Can I ask you, why do you think it's so important to remember Jewish life there in Gotha?
Okay, I mean, a congregation or synagogue or prayer room does not exist in Gotha, and neither in many other places in Thuringia or the east. But this is everyday language and youth language that we use there. You know, the words, and something seemingly foreign suddenly become familiar and a part of me or part of us. So a Jewish life, I don't know any Jew would probably nearly everybody say in our schools here, but now they get in touch with this, with language, with other stuff, and they see, okay, Jewish culture in Germany and even in East Germany is alive. The Nazis did not succeed completely. Yeah. And of course, and unfortunately, there's no synagogue there anymore in this town, and yeah, no visible Jewish life. But maybe it helps that someone will come some days, and it was a part of the city since more than 500, 600 years. So maybe it will come back. I hope so.
We can only hope. Could you maybe talk now a little bit about Ohrdruf, the place that you call the German memory gap? And I know we saw a little bit about it on the video, but at the same time, can you talk a little bit about how you first learned about it?
And this is also a good question, because I didn't know it, and I was already working in this foundation, cultural foundation in Gotha for a couple of years, and no one was talking about that. And you have seen it in the movie. It's not any place. It's the first camp that was liberated by the US troops. So wow, and the first moment was I interviewed, or teenagers actually interviewed an eyewitness. He was, I guess, 12 years old, and during the war in a little town of Gotha, and he talked about seeing inmates. Later, he understood that there were inmates of the concentration camp Ohrdruf, very close to Gotha, and they were forced to dig their own graves. and then they were shot. So, and I was working at a major cultural institution and historic site, and I have never heard of Ohrdruf. And now also it's a military base. There are no markers.
So it's not an open place you can visit. It's something that's controlled.
Not easily. There's no info site or info point in the city or online. With help of knowing people, you may maybe find a telephone number of one of the Bundeswehrmen, soldiers, and you call him and ask, hey, I've got an eyewitness or someone who wants to see this place, because there are still 2 monuments there, remembering to the deaths in 4 or 5 languages like English, German, French, Russian, and it's possible to go to this area and to watch these memorials, but it's not easy.
Yeah,
it's closed. It's closed history.
Yeah, it's closed history. Let me interrupt for 1 second. I've been asked to remind everyone who's here, if you have a question you'd like to ask Christoph, please put it in chat. I promise we will get to them shortly. So please do, if you have anything you want to know. Christoph, I'm just wondering, so I understand about Ohrdruf, not only was it the first camp that the US allies liberated, I understand, I think you told me this, a great uncle of Barack Obama was there as a soldier. Is that right?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, yes, that was the 89th Infantry. Is it well spoken? I don't know. I don't know anything about military. I did social work, but this I know now.
Yeah, and you said to me also, the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum in Washington actually has pictures of Ohrdruf in one of the early rooms in the museum. Is that right?
Exactly, and that's why the title of this project is called German Memory Gap. I know Ohrdruf is not a chiffre like Buchenwald or Auschwitz, but as I understood, in the U.S. history, it's some word or place that it's not unknown, and you see it exactly in Washington D.C. I was never there, but I saw pictures and video material. When you go to the first floor, this remembrance work on this important place and site begins the story of the Second World War and the participations of the US in this World War on another continent, more than 1,000 kilometers away from their loved ones. Why did they went there? Because of, or in Ohrdruf, they understood. The families home understood, because their fathers and sons and brothers and husbands saw and maybe smelled this, what we call Shoah today.
Yeah.
And it was Ohrdruf. And this first room there, the first floor in Washington, D.C., starts just with Ohrdruf, with this key moment of understanding. And Eisenhower and co, they knew this is so incredible, and so there are no words, that we have to do something to that the people will believe us. You know, of course, documentary film material and stuff. They ordered all the journalists, of war journalists and stuff, international journalists, and also the troops who were just around. If they are available to come, they have to see it.
Yeah.
And they decided, they decided from the day of liberation on the 4th April to let the bodies laying, let them down.
Leave them where they are.
Yes, thank you. Because Eisenhower wasn't there the first day of liberation; he was there the 12th. So they decided this maybe unethic decision to do. We have to make proofs of that,
Yeah,
what
to
happened
sort of
here.
prove what happened. Yeah. I'm going to want to jump forward for a second. Can you briefly describe the project you're doing at this place? It sounds like both a place that has been erased from local history, kids didn't learn about it, and also a hard place to get to. And yet I understand that you are creating physical memorials. I understand you're creating biographies for as many as 20,000 people who were there. Can you talk a lot, and that this project is meant to go on for, for many, many generations. Can you talk a little bit about what you're doing there and what you're trying to accomplish?
Thank you. I will try it. The idea is also that remembering is never finished. And we started this project in 2022, and we're watching back in the past, in the year 1944, when in November 1944, this camp was constructed. It existed just 5 months. But in these 5 months, until the end of the war, 20,000 people were there all over Europe, all men and teenagers also, beginning from the 15th year. So, well, and we don't want a memorial plaque. So we do it and it's there, it's written. No, the idea is that it's not finished. And that's why we don't only look into the past, but also in the future. So the same years in the past, we do it in the future, and we will come out in this poetical year 2100. And that's the idea, that we work getting through it until this year 2100. And you see, it's there are more generations involved with that. Yeah. With only this thinking, everything changes in this project. When we explain it to also the students, it makes something with you to think about your own ego and lifetime. I will not make it until 2100, and not a lot of us in this round, probably.
Okay, fair enough.
But it's sorry. Spoiler, but we have to create other thinking ways, and that helps. This sort helps. And what are we doing? We do a lot. We're doing art workshops and creating objects. For example, I can explain it with 2 examples later if you want. And we're doing audio, sound, video creations, and so it's a multimedia thing.
And I understand you're also creating signs along the road that runs toward the campsite. Is that right?
Yes, there was one of the biggest success, I would say, is that maybe we can activate other people. And there's that's really new, and this very engaged teacher in a school in Ohrdruf. And she has this great idea to work every year with the 9 grades. I don't know.
9th graders. Yes, that's right. You got it. 9th graders.
Great. Thank you. Yes, they are 15, 16 years old. And they are getting in touch with biographies. And they are doing this phases of maybe no one specific, because we have not enough photo documentary material of this 20,000 people. Maybe we have 20, but everyone is getting in 1 week workshop format, and in the end of that, everyone made out of clay, a face. A face, and this will be like on the side of the road.
So part of the kind of like almost like a sign, but it's a piece of art with a face.
Exactly. And of course, we all know it, that there will be distractions and vandalism, but it will never stop. It will be a continuous procedure and continuous memorial. If
yeah, very interesting. Let me ask, since you kind of moved us there anyway, can you talk a little bit about the kind of resistance that you've run into? We mentioned both Michael did and I mentioned kind of the type of place this is going on, the political background and the background with the far right and neo-Nazis and so on. But I'm wondering if you can talk about specifically the kind of resistance you've run into.
Yeah, I mean, I had no fight, and I'm alive and everything, so all is good. But you have to say that you can expect less recognition, and there is resistance, external and internal, or it was internal. Now I changed my working space, but there is this idea and this opinion and misunderstanding of remaining neutral. Democracy is dying with this idea being neutral. It's dying as a result, and this danger is particularly acute here in the east of Germany, in Thuringia. In my opinion, the cultural foundation cannot and should not be apolitical.
Yeah.
You must see yourself as a social actor and not as a so-called neutral forum for the left and the right.
Let me just add something here, and I hope you're okay with it. My understanding is when you talk about neutrality, what you really mean is at Friedenstein Castle, you began to do these projects that had a little bit of a history and political element to them, and you were sort of warned off of it because it wasn't neutral enough. Am I getting that right without saying too much? Does that fit your experience?
It was not only a feeling, yes. I won't say any names, but that this principle, and it's not only this place, was and is really such a big danger for our democracy. I mean, this understanding of being neutral. Where are the human rights? Where is the constitution? Where rule of law? We should stay up for these values.
And my understanding is you also ran into some resistance from people who had kind of a neo-Nazi background when you were doing the synagogue projection.
Yeah, that's right. And for example, in this week of performance, someone carved a swastika into the Star of David during the project week. We didn't see it, but it was there, and the police was there and made pictures and stuff. And in just a neighboring garden, there were always noises, and the music was turned up to disturb us, to drown out what we were saying and performing, to shut us down, if you will. But they didn't succeed. Our technique was really expensive, and we had a lot of it. But due to these anti-Semitic crimes and disruption, the discourse was suddenly in the hands of the perpetrators, and that was really sad moment. Yeah? Nobody talked about the performance, the art, content, the teenagers, and it's about information sovereignty also. And another thing, and that's probably the main disturbance, was there was this neo-Nazi a criminal record with a criminal record, and who threatened a teenager over 18 years old, and he made a Hitler salute in front of the police car and was arrested as a result. And fortunately he was so drunk that he was no physical danger, but this young girl, also a person of color, was so frightened, and she called him, insulted him as a Nazi pig, Nazi-Schwein.
Yeah.
And what was the result? That was reported to the police station a couple of months later. That she was reported to the police station. Yeah. So the police have filed charges of insulting behavior. And
you mean against her as opposed?
Yeah, that's nothing but a perpetrator-victim reversal. And lack of institution for the situation, and this frightened 18-year-old. So yeah, we have seen her. That was Victoria in the video.
Okay. And I would just say, I mean, even, thank goodness, something worse didn't happen, just the fact of being scared and intimidated that way just seems very extreme. Yeah. All right.
But you see, we have just hit a nerve there. That was absolutely the impact. We couldn't do it with an exhibition in the castle or in the museum.
Yeah.
We could make an exhibition about Jewish history, but not with these impacts.
Yeah, in other words, where everyone can see it, and where you, in some ways, the resistance was an indicator of impact, I suppose. I'm going to hold off. I have more questions, but I'm going to hold off. So thank you, Christoph. Thank you for giving us a window into your work. I think we should now get to some questions from other people who are part of the event. So I'm, Rebecca, if it's okay, I'll start asking some of the questions. I can see them, so I'll put them out. Let me just say, we will get through, I hope, most of the questions. If for some reason we need to go past the bottom of the hour, we'll see if Christoph has agreed to stay a little bit longer if we need to. Let's start with Becky. Becky says, in the film, a person mentioned that you try to identify things, even small actions of remembrance, that any person can do. She was wondering if you could give some examples, or an example or two.
Where is this question? By whom? I didn't understand.
So her name is Becky, and I'm seeing it from the chat. So
yeah.
She mentioned that somebody mentioned that you try to identify things, even small actions of remembrance, that any person can do. And she was interested in hearing an example or two of these small acts of remembrance.
Okay, thank you for helping me out here.
No problem.
I mean, I can explain one or two examples of this Ohrdruf project, for example, doing small things, but it also does something. There's this one workshop called Involving the Landscape. And they're small sculptures made from clay and flower seeds, like a gardening bombing, you know? Mm-hmm. And the participants get to know biographies, help with Every Name Counts, descendants and science to digitalize information on concentration camp victims, and in the end, create individual objects in memory of prisoners of the subcamp and lay them out at the crime scene, you know? Clay and flower seeds.
So individual objects with clay and flower seeds.
Exactly. And these individual objects have something to do with this chosen biography, which they get into touch with in the beginning. A name, a little history, a photo, and they decide to make something special personally to one person, and the memories become part of nature. How can human suffering be remembered? Is the question in a dignified and preventive way. Yeah, that's that. And another little special little example is when we did, for example, an audio workshop or a film workshop. What we do is that we give away the recorder, for example, to work with it, to get to know it better, the techniques, and to have exercises at home. And so we do this exercise. We say, just do a little interview with your father, grandfather, grandmother, whatever. And what is happening there? That families are talking about things and normally they don't. And the families suddenly become involved in what the teenagers, students are doing and thinking about it. And this does something, yeah? It's like a public sphere that exists.
And so this is one of these small acts of remembrance you're talking about.
For example.
Yeah. So Zoltan, who I hope I'm pronouncing his name correctly, asks, I understand that your work tries to replace missing and repressed historical knowledge in both East and West Germany. In this part of Germany, there were not many Nazis due to this knowledge repressed by politics. I think, and that's in quotes, not many Nazis, meaning people pretended there weren't many Nazis, I think. Would you share this opinion? that memory gap is the widest in the early, I said DDR part of Germany. What do you think?
Yeah, it's really a problem. We can see it since the fall of the wall that this propaganda doesn't help, this GDR propaganda, that there is no anti-Semitic or racistic life in GDR or former GDR. Yes, I completely subscribe that, what Zoltan is saying, yes.
Yeah, okay, great. And then I have a question from Alon, I hope I pronounced your name right. He asked, can you explain again the idea behind the postcards sent to schools? He said that, we may not have seen this, but one of my colleagues shared a link in chat for anyone who'd like more information. But can you just explain again the idea behind the postcards?
Yes, the idea was to look into our language. Where is Jewish history, culture, Hebraic and Yiddish words in our language? So that was the idea, to get this in the center, and postcards were just for advertising for this synagogue intervention thing, but this word stickers with these words, explaining the history of the words in a little short way. They were like this decentral urban action, because they were everywhere. Jewish, German words were everywhere in the city, over hate speech stickers, for example. Yeah, and the idea here was getting involved the people in the beginning of this aesthetical intervention in the end.
I think we have time for one more question, so I'm going to ask you one more. And this is, during the film, the students or the young people expressed how inspired they were in working with you. So Christoph, I'm wondering, can you talk about your philosophy or your method, if you will, of how best to engage teenagers or young people like them in these kind of projects? It's something that we often talk about with others, and it seems like something you've done pretty well. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, they're too kind. I think I'm just a normal person, and I have respect. I hope that I have respect to everyone. And there's this child in me that says and believes or that trusts the youngest more than the grown-ups. And that's why I really have a lot of respect for children. That's also something that I do here in this growing school, to invent Jewish a teenager and children ein Jugendrat, and a parliament, like a teenage and children parliament, and I'm talking and making children rights true, you know?
Yeah.
I think it's just that it's on one eye level, and they are so creative, and I really believe in this Generation C, and they don't only think about the climate change. They are also so interested in this anti-discrimination stuff that we are talking about today, and I'm very, very optimistic and hopeful with this generation.
You know what? I would say I'm very happy to hear you say that. It's not always as obvious. I would just say it seems like part of this is really about your attitude and beliefs, and your just the attitude with which you engage with younger people. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I studied philosophy. What do I know about educational stuff? I have just maybe. I'm a lucky guy that it works out with the people.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know why, but it works out.
Well, I think part of it is based on your skill and creativity, and you're willing to rethink things. But I think those are all of our questions, or at least all the questions that I've seen so far. And we're close to the end of the hour. So first thing I want to do is just thank you, Christoph, for this conversation. This is fascinating. It's lovely to have a window into your work. And I continue to think you are a very, very worthy Obermayer Award winner. So thank you. And
okay, thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for your insightful comments. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. I want to stop just for one moment, and I'm going to put on my, well, first I want to thank the Leo Baeck Institute and Michael for sponsoring this event with us and for sponsoring this event series around conversations with award winners. I'm going to pause just for a moment before I finish thanking people. And I'm going to put on my executive director hat here for a moment. Widen the Circle raises money to support this important work, the awards, the network that we have in Germany, and the bridge building work we do here in the United States. And Widen the Circle needs money to support this important work. And so I would just be so grateful if those of you who are here would consider investing in it. You can do so by going to our website, which is widenthecircle.org. I bet it will be in chat very shortly, but it's widenthecircle.org. You'll see a donate button on the top right of the home screen. And you can also encourage people who are curious about Widen the Circle to come to our website, which is, again, widenthecircle.org. With that in mind, I just want to thank everyone for these insightful and thoughtful questions. Thank you again, Christoph, for joining us from your workplace at the School of Drawing. Thank you so much. Thank you again. Thank you so much for this window into your work. I will just say it is very heartening to me to see the passion and energy and innovative style you put into your work. And I'm excited to see what you do next. So thank you.
We do it together in
do
this
it?
great network.
Yep.
Thank you to Widen the Circle.
You know what? We would be delighted. That sounds wonderful. That sounds wonderful. And I look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you to everyone, and thank you for joining us. We appreciate you being part of this event and taking a moment of your day to take a look at this work. So thank you.